you plan to serve your entire term in Arizona, or are you open to being the VP?
Are you new covering this race? Because we've talked about this before. We've talked about this. I've answered these questions. I am going to not only be the governor of Arizona for 4 years, I'm going to do 2 terms. I'm going to be your worst freaking nightmare for 8 years. And we will reform the media as well. We're going to make you guys into journalists again. So get ready. It's going to be a fun 8 years. I can't wait.
That was MAGA darling Kari Lake, pledging to the media that she wouldn't serve just 1 term as governor of Arizona. She'd serve 2 and be the press's biggest nightmare. Well, cover your ears, Kari, because you're not going to like the clip I'm going to show next. Get your popcorn, folks.
1 second, Vaughn.
Chris, got to throw it to you here.
We're getting, hold on 1 second. I think we're getting some word from the control room about a call here, if I'm not mistaken. We are now projecting that Democratic Secretary of State Katie Hobbs is, in fact, the winner in the Arizona gubernatorial race. This will make her the Democratic governor of that state. She has, according to our projections, vanquished Kari Lake, local TV news personality.
Oh, Kari, that's tough, but that's right. Just before 9 o'clock on Monday night, the news networks had finally seen enough. Katie Hobbs' impressively strong performance in Maricopa County sealed the deal in Arizona, and Donald Trump's last endorsed candidate took a gigantic L. That's good news for Arizona, and great news for democracy. And Republicans aren't taking Lake's loss well. Just a few days ago, she promised that the GOP cavalry was coming to guarantee her victory. That cavalry proved as imaginary as many of Lake's conspiracy theories. And now, far-right Republicans nationwide are melting down rather than accept the reality that they just got beat again.
We lost in 2020 because of that, because of the mail-in ballots and because it was ripe for election fraud. And now we're watching it again, especially in Kari Lake's race over in Arizona. This shouldn't be this way. Everyone was calling for a red wave. Either all the pollsters were wrong and they need to be fired, and that's Republican, Democrat, and every media pollster saying that we were going to get a red wave, or we have to finally acknowledge the fact, or at least we have to get the other side to acknowledge the fact and admit the truth, that mail-in ballots is the biggest problem in our elections, and it is going to be a major factor going forward into 2024.
That was Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she just laid it out pretty clearly. The reason Republicans lost so many races is because of all those pesky votes. Greene is one of many Republicans now arguing that the answer to the GOP's problems doesn't involve changing their awful views. They want to crack down on voting. It's no surprise that the GOP wants to make it harder to vote. As their red wave morphed into a red wave goodbye, it became clear that when Americans vote, Republicans lose. They know that's the one way Republicans can hold power.
How in the world can America, Arizona, the world, anyone you want to look at, possibly believe that Katie Hobbs should get to certify her own stolen election if that's in fact the way this goes? I had a great opportunity to speak with Kari last night, and she's an incredibly strong person, and I think the one thing that she and I both agreed upon was that it's time. Now's the time to fight. It's not not wait until end of 2023 into the primaries in 2024. Now is the time. We stand here today and we fight.
Angry Wild West prospector Greg Phillips is right about one thing. The GOP isn't going to wait until 2023 to begin their fight against voting rights. And in states like Louisiana, which is now claiming the power to decide who counts as black for the purposes of the Voting Rights Act, the war on our voting rights now takes on an urgent new dimension. One thing is very clear. The Republican Party has a media problem. Poll after poll has shown that voters are turned off by wingnut madness on display on Fox News, Newsmax, and a whole host of other right-wing networks. But those networks also run the Republican Party, and lawmakers who think it's time for a change are about to find out how little they matter in their own party. If you checked out Fox News around the time Katie Hobbs sent Kari Lake packing, you wouldn't see any news about the race. In fact, one of their top stories was Tom Brady changing his social media profile. But there was one mention of Arizona, this interview with Kari Lake, casting doubt on the fairness of the election.
What's going to happen when we hear about this vote dump in about, minutes it could be, Kari?
I don't know. We think we should be in good shape. There's look at my notes, 158,000 ballots that have not been counted yet. And 94,000 of those are in Maricopa County, where they took our sacred vote and they just made a mockery of it. It's outrageous, Jesse, what happened. I had a man come up to me at breakfast yesterday and said, I showed up to vote. There was a 3-hour line. They said the tabulator machines were not working.
What's so funny about what Kari Lake is saying here is that all those delays and long voting lines, they exist because Arizona's Republicans tried to make voting harder in order to try and protect candidates like her. At the same time, Lake also told Arizona's McCain Republicans to find a new party to call home, ultimately leading many of them to knife her directly in the back.
Between the McCain Republicans and the Trump Republicans, a fierce battle we've seen over a couple of different cycles. One of the Republicans in this state said that Kari Lake told a legion of John McCain supporters across Arizona that they could go to hell. Tonight, they returned the favor.
If that wasn't enough good news, things are also looking up in Arizona's state races, where Democrats are just a few close seats away from flipping the state legislature. That would give them the power to undo the worst of the GOP's anti-voting, anti-women policies. The good guys are finally winning. Republican overconfidence is turning out to be Democrats' greatest gift in a hard-fought midterm election. The right spent so long viewing Arizona as their own unstoppable fortress. Now that same party is on the verge of being driven out of every major office in the state. That is what organizing can do. Election fraud didn't cost Kari Lake her race. Arrogance did. And the idea that with enough billionaire funders behind you, the voters just don't matter that much. Democrats organized and brought in support from around the country to amplify Katie Hobbs' message to every voter willing to listen. Now they've earned something huge, the opportunity to actually govern. There's one small silver lining here for Kari Lake after a spectacular collapse. Thanks to all of those video filters she likes to use, the voters will never get to see her cry. If you made it to the end, thanks so much for watching. Check out my new Substack at maxburns.substack.com for even more coverage, and leave a comment below to let me know what I should cover next.